Hi my lovelies, welcome back to my channel, and for everybody who is new, I'm Leorah and I'm so glad you found me. So welcome to today's video, which is going to be the next installment in my infertility series. So if medical things is not for you, then please don't watch, okay? Please come back for my next video. But yeah, so that's what we're going to do today, and we're going to talk today about my third pregnancy, which was my fourth child, because my second pregnancy was a twin pregnancy. And this is a very, very special child because it's a boy, and you actually have seen him, if you're not new here, you've seen him recently in my collaboration video with Classic Cake Cosmetics, where we did a look with the James Charles palette. Because he was actually there on video choosing the shadows that I was using. That is Hallel Yedidia, that's his full name, and he is now 6.5 years old, and he just started first grade, so he's right now in school. And I know in my last installment in this series I had told you that if I can, I will bring on the kids to my channel that I'm actually talking about, and of course that is not possible right now because he's in school. So I'm gonna put up a picture here of him, and so you see the result of my treatments, sort of. So he, poor soul, or blessed soul, depending on how you want to see it, he is a very, very special child in the sense of where he was born in the order of my kids. So he was born at like exactly the middle of all of my kids. He has 3 above and 3 below, so he is the fourth one, and he has a very, very hard position in the family as a sandwich kid. Not that we're giving him a hard time, but it is just the way that if you're the sandwich kid, you have a very hard time to figure out where do you belong. Do you belong to the older ones, to the big ones, or do you belong to the small ones? And then in addition to that, he is a child that was born between 2 sets of twins. So his 2 older siblings are Shalevet and Kineret, the ones we spoke about last time, the identical twin girls. And then the 2 after him are Micellar and Goldberg, who are boy-girl twins. So he is alone in the middle of twins, which is very, very hard for him. Anyway, so I'm going to go into the story time, telling you how all of this came to be and all of that. And if you're up for that, then just join me on this journey and please keep on watching. So as you know, these kinds of videos are very, very hard for me emotionally to let myself go there and re-experience all of that. And I just want to say, if this is all of these videos, if they are jumbled up, if they feel a little bit not put together or something like this, that's just because this is in the middle of my life, this is in the middle of my emotions, and it's really, really hard for me. So nevertheless, I do feel, and I also said that in all of the other videos, that I am in the place that I'm supposed to share this, that this is going to help someone out there, or at least encourage someone out there, because there are a lot of people who have been diagnosed with infertility, and there is hope. You know, that is basically the message that I want to get across. And nobody thought, like my husband and I, did we think when we got the diagnosis of infertility that we would end up having 7 kids? No way. We never thought we would have 1. And after the first one was born, we didn't think that we have more than that. So we never thought that there would be more, really. But there is hope, and there is always this thing beyond what doctors can do and what people can do and what all your efforts can do to bring this to be, you know, into reality. There is, according to my belief, there is always God involved in this, and he actually has the last word above the diagnosis of doctors. Anyway, so let's go into this. Okay. So last time we stopped, and this is going to be probably again a long video, so just be sure you have whatever you need so you don't have to leave in the middle, or you just put me on hold and whatever. So okay, so last time we stopped when I had my girls, and I had told you in the last video that I actually had, from my treatments for the pregnancy for my girls, for my twin girls, that I had still frozen embryos then at that point. So when I had my girls weaned and had my year passed of, you know, after C-section, where you're not supposed to have treatments, fertility treatments, So I then waited for my period to come so I could start the next set of treatments. There was a whole drama going on because there was in the medical system, or in the medical, whatever it's called, in the hospitals, they were on strike. And I was thinking, no, you know, what am I going to do? Because then I have to wait another month, or who knows how long I have to wait till I get my next period, because it was never really regular. And I was always under so much pressure. Always under pressure. I don't know, this is like the story of my life, that I'm always under pressure, if it is for this or for that or the other thing, for having children, for having the perfect weight, for being good at whatever I'm doing. I'm always driving myself nuts. So instead of just relaxing and saying, okay, so they're striking, God be with them, may they get a raise in their salary. That sounds like that's a vegetable. Celery, whatever, you know, in money. We should all have a raise in salary. You know, instead of doing that, I was like, oh no, what am I gonna do? And sure enough, in that time, I got my period. So by the third day of your period, you have to start treatments, otherwise you lose the whole month. I think after like 2.5 days, the strike was over, and I got on the phone and got in touch with that department in the hospital, the fertility department, and I said, let me just please come and let's start the treatments, because I'm losing my mind here. And they were kind enough to say, okay, come right now, because usually this is all with long planned ahead appointments and things like this, you know. Usually you don't just drop in, but maybe because I had already treatments for 2 kids and a lot of treatments before that were not successful, so they knew me already and they knew that I'm gonna go crazy if they don't take me. So anyway, so they let me come. I dropped everything. And actually my father and my mother were visiting at that time. It just happened to be that way. So I dropped, I think, Charlotte and Kinera, the baby twins, they were at home. So I dropped them at my parents' feet, and I said, I'm gonna go to the hospital right now. So that's what I did. And yeah, so I went there, I got all the forms set up, all the medication, and then they also sent me to my healthcare provider to get their backup for like taking care of payments and or whatever their share is. So last time I had told you that the Israeli healthcare system sort of allows for you to have treatments for 2 living children. At least this is my information as of how it was back then. I'm pretty sure it is still that way, but I'm not 100% sure. At least that's how it was. So we had already 3 children. So we knew that we would probably be able to do treatments for fertility treatments using our frozen ones, to just, you know, thaw them and put the frozen embryos into the uterus. We thought that we would probably be able to pay out of our own pocket for that, but not to start a whole new treatment cycle with all of that for IVF, because that is super huge expensive. So the time came that I had to start my medicine and build up you know, the level of hormones in my body and everything to make it ready for conception. And then I had to go to all kinds of ultrasounds to always check the layering in the uterus and all of that and everything. And I took a whole big bag full of medicine to prepare my body, and then it was the morning of when I was supposed to go in to have those 2 embryos put in. They took them out of the freezer, sort of. I don't know what the correct medical term is in English, where they are storing the frozen embryos. They took them out of the freezer in the morning. They let them thaw and see if they if the cell splitting process continues, and then they know that the embryo is still alive. So I think that was like 7 o'clock in the morning when they're taking them out, and then early afternoon they call you in, or at some point during the afternoon, to have the embryos put in. So around noontime they called me and they said that the embryos have died. So that was horrible. There is a certain percentage of frozen embryos that just don't survive the process, and that's just the way it is. It's like the natural fallout. It sounds terrible, but that's how it is. And I knew that this is a possibility, but I thought, after all that we've been through, why should that happen to me, right? Like, why, right? You know. So when they called me, I know I was standing in the kitchen. My parents were also there. I got off the phone. I just hung up and I went to my bedroom and I just started crying. I didn't talk to anyone, and they were smart enough to just leave me alone and to get it out of my system. And then what I usually do is I try to regroup and sort of make a battle plan. What is next? So the next thing I remember doing is that I went with my dad. I don't know why my dad was there, but I know that I went with my dad to our healthcare provider. I had an appointment there with the secretary or whatever that person was to check into our insurance thing, what we can do, if we can get more support for more fertility treatments or not, or what it would cost if we cannot get support or things like this. So I wanted to get all the information that I can possibly get. And I was sitting there across the desk from that person. She was hammering all the information in the computer. My dad was sitting next to me. Of course, he didn't understand anything because he didn't understand Hebrew. So I was talking with that person in Hebrew, and I was saying, so yeah, please let me know what the treatments would cost, what would be our share, or what is the, what can we do in order to have more treatments. So then she looked at the screen at all our information, and then she said, what do you mean if we can have more treatments? And I said, well, we have 3 kids, we had 2 pregnancies, this is our allowance, we have gotten our allowance and now we need to pay. And she said, girl, don't you know that you have a special insurance? I said, no. So she said, you have that and that special insurance, which makes you which gives you the possibility to have as many fertility treatments as you want. And I was like, what? She said, yes. And you only have to pay 20% of the whole amount, which is still not a piece of cake, but it's much, much better than paying 100%. I was absolutely stunned by this information. I had no idea. I knew that we didn't have the minimum insurance. We had some kind of special insurance, but I had no idea that that was part of the deal. So I asked her, well, how come doesn't everybody sign up for this? And she said, no, you have to sign up for this 2 or 3 years or something before you even realize that you need treatments. So people cannot just go and sign up for this and then start treatments. So we had signed up for this when we, before we had gotten married, or right after, when we sort of signed up to it together as a married couple. And and my husband had for some reason chosen this particular insurance, not for the reason of possible fertility treatments, because we had no reason to think that we would have trouble in that regard, but for all kinds of other reasons that they offer. So I went home and I felt like skipping and jumping up the walls and amazing. So I went home, I told my husband, I told my parents, and everybody was super happy. And then basically we got all the documentation right and everything, and we waited for my next period to come, and then we started the treatments. So that was that. And then we did, and I had to, of course, do a whole lot of treatments again with harvesting eggs for the IVF and all of that. I explained that in more detail last time in my last video, so if you are new here and you don't know what I'm talking about, then maybe check that installment or watch all of them. All right, so that's what we did, and then I went back to have 2 embryos implanted or put back in, because it's not really an implantation. The embryos have to implant themselves. You cannot medically do that for them. Okay, so they put the embryos into my uterus, and then again I got to rest, and I found out that I was pregnant a couple weeks, maybe 10 days later or something. They told me that I was pregnant and everything was great, and I was so super happy, and I couldn't believe my luck, my blessing, and that was super amazing. So we had moved to the house where we live now in that time, and because before then we were living in a smaller apartment with a lot of steps, and that was already a real struggle with a 3-year-old and baby twins who were at that point, how old were they? Maybe a year and a half. So we had moved to the house where we live now, and which is very close to where my in-laws live and also my husband's brother and his family. So we met on one Shabbat evening, and that is when we wanted to announce the pregnancy. So we did that, we announced the pregnancy, everything, you know, went great, whatever. And then we went back home, and I said before, because it was in the evening, so we were just about to put the kids to bed, I said to my husband, I'm just going to go quickly to the bathroom, and then we're going to put the kids to bed together. So I went to the bathroom, and I saw that I was bleeding. We had just announced the pregnancy to the whole family, and I came home and I was bleeding. So I was freaking out. That was horrible. I started to panic, and the sense of potential loss that you feel in that moment is absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. So I spent this whole Shabbat basically on the couch and trying to rest as much as possible. And I kept bleeding. It did not pick up. It didn't get really super bad, but I kept bleeding. And then I thought, okay, so on Sunday morning, we're going to go and get myself checked out. So apparently I had been pregnant with twins again, but one of them had died and was encapsulated right next to Shiloh, who was still okay. So I kept basically bleeding till this whole encapsulation had bled itself out, and then it shrunk back together and sort of disappeared after the, like in the coming weeks. That's what happened. I don't know how to put it in the right medical terms, but maybe you'll understand what I mean. Okay, so this whole thing sort of disappeared, the twin brother or sister of Shiloh, and then I had Shiloh. And so the pregnancy was very good. He was a strong child, though I have to say that I never experienced how a real pregnancy feels up until my last one that I conceived naturally, and I'll get to that when we get to that. Because I only know pregnancies or new pregnancies that were forced onto my body, that were made by medicine, and that felt like a super hormonal truck wreck, you know. But I didn't know that because that's all I knew. Okay, so I only figured that out later on. So the pregnancy was okay as far as I'm concerned. The ultrasounds were fine. We found out that it's a boy. I was super happy because, again, I thought this is going to be our last child, most probably, and not because of the medical side of it, because of, you know, not being able to pay for it, because now we knew that our insurance allows for more, but also because my husband is 21 years older, and we thought, you know, there is a limit to what we can do, you know. And yeah. And I was already above 30 by then, and because I had my first child only when I was 27, so which is pretty late in the Oriental world, you know. So yeah, so I had him, I think, well, what was that? I think I was 38 weeks pregnant or something. He had been so rambunctious in my tummy. He was my wildest child. He was my biggest child. And I already had like contractions at week 32 again, like last time, because he was so wild, like unbelievable. I just wanted to get him out, really, because it was torture. So I had him again by C-section, and I remember the epidural in that particular surgery was horrible. They were like trying to put the epidural in like 7 times or something, and I just, at some point, I begged the people in the OR to just hit me over the head and knock me out because I couldn't take it, you know. It was horrible, and I had such a trauma from that afterwards that I obsessed about that afterwards, because like I was obsessing about everything. So I obsessed in the 2 pregnancies that still came, and I knew that I again would have to have an epidural to have a C-section. I obsessed the whole pregnancy more than anything else that I would have to have an epidural. This is how bad it was. Anyway, so I had the child. He was a boy, as we knew, and he was beautiful. Everything was fine. He drank well. I was able to leave the hospital after, I think 5 days is the usual time after a C-section here in my country. And yeah, so that was that. That was the pregnancy and the conception and pregnancy with our son Shiloh, who is now 6.5 years old. As I told you, he just started his first grade in school, and it was a hard time to raise him up until now. He has been exactly the way he was in my tummy this is how he was the whole time. He was rambunctious, he was very emotional, he was very like he was how do you say that, like he was wearing his heart on his sleeves in the way he shows his emotions. He can get really angry, he can be really loving, he can be everything, but it feels like everything in extremes. So now I feel that the thing is that he's now in first grade and he feels like he's actually part of the bigger kids. He can associate himself with school kids instead of the three little ones that are still in kindergarten. It is so good for him. He is so much more balanced, and he also has started martial arts now, which sort of gives him an outlet for the physical need to move and to hit, to just have an outlet for all of this male energy, because he is very much like that. So anyway, I'm super, super proud of him. He is, I think, I cannot say it 100% for sure, but I feel like he has the potential of being the smartest of our kids. I have to tell you one story about him. You know, when Shalhevet and Kinneret, who are now in 4th grade, the ones that I spoke about last time, when they started 1st grade, so he was 2 years younger. So he was like 4 years old. So they were starting to do homework and learning numbers, and I think doing like calculation up until 10, like 2 plus 2 and things like this. So they were sitting at the kitchen table and trying to figure out how maths work. And he was sitting there just playing and they were trying, I think it was even 2 plus 2, they were trying to figure out what that is, 2 plus 2 is 4, but they couldn't figure it out. It was very hard. They had this whole group discussion going on, and he just picked up his toys, totally annoyed, and walked out of the room. And while he was walking out, he said, "The result is 4," and he left. So he is unbelievable. And the same thing we did with the alphabet. So we have the Hebrew alphabet plastered in big, big letters at a wall in one of our children's bedrooms. And every night before we said goodnight, we were going on about like one of the letters to show them the letter and to pronounce it and things like this, because kids here in this country are supposed to know the alphabet and also the numbers till 10 before they even go to school, which is, for me, it's ridiculous, because I grew up in the belief that this is why you go to school, this is what you learn in 1st grade. But okay, so anyway, and he was just sitting there playing while we were teaching the older kids, who were starting 1st grade or whatever. And he was so much faster than his older sisters, and he picked up the alphabet and he could like pronounce it and everything and recognize letters in Hebrew. And before he started 1st grade, he's already like reading like words, longer words in Hebrew, which is absolutely amazing to me. How he can just pull the letters together, and he made that in his mind. Like, he taught himself doing that, because we did not make an effort to do that. Not at all. Anyway, so just wanted to say that he is a super smart kid. I'm super blessed to have him. And for him, it took me a little bit longer to figure him out, because he is special in his own way. Like every child is special, but sometimes they are special in a way that you cannot immediately figure them out, even though you are the mom or you are the dad. And sometimes you just need some time to get to know each other and to look like behind the scenes and behind the thing that they show publicly. So he is very close to my heart, and I know that after all we've been through with him, with all the tantrums and all the resistance and all the being difficult, I know that through all of this a very special bond has developed, and that I'm looking ahead at something so, so beautiful with him. So that is that. So I hope you enjoyed this installment of my fertility series. As I told you, it is very hard for me to talk about this. I hope it's not boring, or it's not rambling and rambled. So I hope that this is helping you, or you're enjoying it at least. And let me know what you think in the comment section down below. As always, you find all the information about me and about my makeup and about everything, my social media contacts and everything in the description box. And if you want to come back for my next video, if you're new here, please subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you. And I'll see you here next time for my next video, which is super soon. And yeah, up until then, go ahead and sparkle. I love you so much. Hugs and kisses. Bye.